Hi, I'm Belinda Luscombe. I'm an editor-at-large at Time magazine, but you're not here for me. You're here for John Ashbery, often called America's most important living poet. Thanks for letting us come here, Mr. Ashbery.
Thank you for coming.
You won an award from the National Book Association last night. Are you, in fact, America's most important living poet?
I don't think so. Important, I get talked about a lot, but for many years the jury has been out and probably always will be on the question of my importance. I enjoy writing the way I do, which doesn't please a lot of people and pleases others enormously.
Do you ever read what the critics write about you, what poetry critics and literary critics write about you, and just think, this is hysterical, or this is ridiculous?
No, I don't feel this is ridiculous because I don't know, maybe they're right. I haven't got that much confidence in my writing. It's more like, hope rather than confidence.
Do other forms of poetry interest you, poetry slams, those kind of things?
I don't really like poetry readings very much, including my own. I hate the sound of my own voice, for instance, and I can't stand listening to myself reading poetry. And that goes true for most other poets, too.
Do you think that there's any way in which poetry, which in my lifetime, and probably in yours, seems to have become less and less popular, do you think there's a way that it can become more part of people's lives again?
No, my
I'm prepared to be
impression
wrong.
Is that there's a much bigger audience for poetry than there was when I was young. In fact, when I began writing, there was really only one poetry magazine in the country, Poetry. Today it seems there are so many magazines, presses, so many poets. I have the impression that poetry is liked more by those who like it than was the case in the past.
Now, you grew up in an era where it was considered shameful to be gay, and that is no longer the prevailing view, I would say.
Oh, really?
Well, I guess the jury's out.
Nobody told me.
It's certainly not as prevailing as it was. Would you go that far with me?
Sure.
Do you think if that attitude had been current in your life, it would have changed your work?
I've never been sure of how that would have worked. There's a school of criticism who says that my poetry is so torturous and obscure because I've been trying to cover up the fact of my sexuality all these years. And I think that's an interesting possibility, and there may indeed be some truth in it. But I'm not quite sure how much and whether that's the generating force in my poetry. I think I would have been attracted to this kind of poetry anyway.
Do you currently make a living off your poetry?
Heavens, no. I mean, gosh, no. Or shucks, no. No, not at all. I made a living teaching, from which I'm now retired. That's one thing poets can do, and many of them do, to survive.
If you could swap places and you could, instead of being America's most important living poet, you could be America's most important living something else, what would you like it to be?
Well, I don't think I'd want to be anything else. I think I'd rather stick with poetry.
Mr. Ashbery, thanks very much.
Thank you.